So interestingly, the biggest deal breaker in any marriage or even relationships is the mother-in-law. It doesn't matter whose mother, the man's mother-in-law, either partner. The
Yeah.
mother-in-law is the biggest deal breaker, or I may say troublemaker. And we see a lot of sitcoms revolving around that subject. Not just comedy, but also drama, soap opera.
Yeah.
Our pop culture is full of it. Maybe our pop culture is exaggerating the problem and reinforcing the problem. But the bottom line is that problem is there. That
Yes.
divide is there. Mother-in-law to son-in-law or daughter-in-law, that divide is there and creates really deep-rooted problems, which more than often, I think it'd be safe to say that majority divorces are because of the in-laws. Doesn't matter if you're living in nuclear families, divided families, coexisting, joint family, it doesn't matter.
Right.
The presence and involvement of the in-laws, and in particular, now this is ironic, in-laws and in particular, the mother-in-law. Dennis, how do you deal with that, man?
Yeah, it's really tricky because in my situation, I mean, I think we always, go towards our own personal perspective and stuff. And in my situation, April's mother-in-law was very challenging to deal with for a while. And on the reverse of that, my mother-in-law is absolutely wonderful. It is my father-in-law that's the most difficult one. So I think where I really look at this topic is it's outside interference and influence. And I know that we're going to talk about some cultural things today. I just want to make sure that we understand that at the end of the day, regardless of how two people ended up getting together or getting married, unless you take and I'm not saying cut people out of your life, but I am saying if you do not take and learn how to navigate or manage boundaries, you're setting yourself up for a very long line of conflict and controversy and just not a very happy home life because these situations can become very, very pervasive. As far as the jokes, I don't know. I think it's at some point you would think that wow, man, we don't want to. You'd think that people would go, well, I certainly don't want to be portrayed that way. I don't think that when we see these characters on television or in media that we necessarily think that they apply to us. So, but I do think that, at some point, parents, the quote that I put up there from Dr. Phil, I think it says it exactly correctly, which is you're a guest in their marriage and a guest in their home. And I understand people might, generational living and stuff, multi-generational living. Then it further says you have to fold into their rules and lives if you want to be welcome there. And I completely agree. So it's, I'm a big word guy, FQ. And so one of the things I say when I'm talking to parents is that there's a big difference. One is unconditional love flows one way. That is from a parent to the child. That's it. You have no expectation for your child to love you back. They don't have to. Second is that, or third in that really is that, there's a big difference between saying, my father-in-law will say, I really want you to be a part of my life. Well, there's a big difference in saying, I want you to be a part of my life versus saying to your child, I just want to be a part of your life, however that looks. So what you're doing is it's a very, very different context and perspective that you're coming from. One is, I wish to be a part of my child's life. The other is, I want you to be a part of my life. And that's where these conflicts come from. So culturally, you guys are up against some, you're up against some different challenges that I don't have here. Because at the end of the day, there is no cultural ramification. And in fact, in many ways, I'm expected to do this to my in-laws and then move on. But I know that that's not always culturally appropriate or even an option for many people in the world.
Yeah, here's the thing that you said, your child does not have to love you back. I think it should be your child should not have to love you back. If they want, they can, and but in our part of the world, it's sort of like a mandatory, whether you like it or not, whether you accept it or not. You have no, but in my part of the world, there is severe disbalance in favor of the man,
Sure.
and the woman is really out of favor here, because as the song, and a man shall leave his mother and a woman leave her home. That's only Western, man. The Captain Eagle song, the wedding song. But in Pakistan, it's completely different. The man does not leave the mother; the woman leaves her home, and she moves in with the husband. And more than often, I mean, I would say majority of the time, there is a joint family system, and the the boy's parents are almost always a part of your life more than your wife's parents. It's sad, but it's true. So the wife is expected to deal with the in-laws, while the husband does not have to deal with the in-laws. If a man chooses, or if he just has 10% of asshole in him, he can completely disregard his in-laws, and nobody would be really complaining. It'd be like, it's all right, man. But if the wife is not like a humble servant to her in-laws, and she's not ready to be walked over, if she's not ready to be taken advantage of, if she's not ready to be screwed in every possible way, she'd be a bad person. She'd be a bad woman. Which I think is very unfair. And the biggest problems in my part of the world happen because of this imbalance. With that said, it's not all bad either. Because of that forced coexistence, people tend to also make it work. The mother-in-laws and the daughter-in-laws, they both tend to try to make it work. But it's really cultural, and I think this, my part of my culture in this regard is I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's nice. What I like about the Western culture and even Arab culture, which I never knew till the 90s. A friend of mine I went to university with, he went back to Dubai, and I moved back to Pakistan. And I got a letter from him one day. This is before the email, and it said, "Mr. Qureshi, new name, new wife, new address, new job," and that's all it said. And he had changed his name. So a couple of years later, I went to Dubai to see him. It was like 1989, and that's the first thing I asked him. I said, "Dude, what's up?" And he goes, "Well, new address because I wanted to get married, and for me to get married, I had to have my own kitchen. If I did not have my own kitchen, nobody would marry me." So even though he's in his own kitchen, meaning that he had to leave his father's home.
Got it. Yeah.
He had to have his own setup, and even though he married his cousin, uncle's daughter. Which is you for you, but it's normal. Yeah. So
I have no
so even
dog in that
even then he had to get his own job and address before that girl would marry him. Which I was like, wow, fantastic, man. So in our part of the world, it's really tough for the daughters-in-law, and I think it's a bit unfair.
Yeah, and that's kind of that's what I have experienced getting to know your culture as well as I have. I would say over here in the U.S., it's kind of it's nothing written. It's nothing written. There seems to kind of be a subtext of an unwritten rule that when people get married. Like I was just expected. I was just expected to fall in line with my wife's tradition. So in many cases, what happens here is the sons, they go off and they kind of attach to the girl's family, and then the girl's family is kind of that central hub. So it's almost like it's in reverse. The difference is that there's really no obligation here, where the obligation comes in just like with any other humans, where people get their feelings hurt. People are prone to being controlling. They're prone to being people pleasing. They want their own way and selfishness and all this other stuff. And I'm not saying that any of that's bad. It's just human nature. So I think really in order to really understand this and how to navigate it, regardless of where you're at, it simply is understanding that you have to take and decide what it is that you want. You really do. And many times we live up to cultural or family obligations or expectations. When we live up to those, it's because it benefits us in some way. Either we want to reap the benefits of being attached to that family. We want the financial security. We want all of the benefits of it. We just don't want to take and put up with somebody's BS. So I would say, and I've seen situations like working with people in Pakistan and other parts of around that area, is that, I don't understand a mother-in-law treating their daughter-in-law like garbage. I just don't understand that, because that mother is still a female. Why would the females not band together and make sure that the daughters-in-law are taken better care of? So, and in this situation, like over here in the U.S., it really comes down to trying to get everybody on the same page of families coming together, and that doesn't happen either. My family, my mother and father weren't my dad wasn't even at my wedding. My mother was there. She was there for a few moments. My in-laws were there the whole time, though. So, like, it really, I think we put a little bit too much, even as kids, we put too much expectation on family. And instead of looking at it from the perspective of, this is my family, this is our family, we need to take and make the best decisions for us. And I'll just come out and say, FQ, in my world, in my experiences, that the biggest challenges to these types of interpersonal relationships are ego and expectations. Ego and expectations and emotional attachments, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it comes down to emotional attachments, ego, and expectations. If we can manage those, and when I talk about creating boundaries, I am not saying cut somebody out of your life. I am specifically talking about changing your mindset where that's concerned. I don't know. Is your mother-in-law annoying? Or is she hysterical? You get to decide. And so a lot of times all we do is we focus on the negative as well in these situations as well. Go ahead.
Okay, in direct relation to what you've just said, I'm going to take on two comments. The first one is here, that why does a daughter-in-law not consider her mother-in-law as her own mother? Khushbu, I'm glad you asked, raised this question. A daughter-in-law in our part of the world is typically about 22, 23, 21, 18, 19. She's a kid. She's left her family. She's just completely out of her water, man. You take her out and you throw her into a brand new environment. And then she faces hostility. And then she's expected to conform and say, hey, mom-in-law, suddenly you're my mother. Because you're my husband's mother, you're my mother now. The mother-in-law is the older one, is the most sensible one. It's her home, it's her terrain. People who are already in that home, they're in the stronger position. They need to give the newcomer that assurance that they're their family, that they're her family. They need to give her that comfort that, I am willing to be as good to you as your own mother. Before she accepts you as her mother, you need to become her mother. You need to become her family, because before you expect a 20-year-old or a 19-year-old, even a 30-year-old, who is completely out of her water, man. You've taken her out of her life and you've thrown her into a brand new situation. She walks in and there's this hostility all around her, and you expect her to conform and be nice and worship you. It's not going to happen. So I put 100,000% responsibility on the mother-in-law, who's the older of the family, and the other siblings of the boy who are already in their comfort zone. They need to give her the home that she would then say, thank you very much. You guys are really as good as my own siblings and my parents, and I accept you. You cannot accept her to make the first move. The second comment is from Irfan, who says, I treat my in-laws with great respect because I would want my wife to treat my parents with great. Irfan, love you, man, but you know what? This is absolute BS. So why aren't you good to your parents-in-law just because you're a nice guy? Where's this dealing and bartering? Why are you going to be nice to them just so that she'd be nice to them? I know what you're trying to say, but you know what? I wish you hadn't worded it this way. She would be nice to your parents because she's a nice person. So what you're saying is, if she doesn't treat your parents nicely, you'll stop treating her parents nicely? No, man. You're supposed to treat them nicely just because you're a good dude. And she should treat your parents nicely because she's a good person. Everyone needs to treat each other nicely and with respect because of who they are. I am going to be nice to you not because of you, but because of who I am, man. If I have the potential to be an asshole, I'm just an asshole.
Right.
And I'm not being one because of some selfish motive. So, Dennis, I just want to address these two comments, man.
Yeah, no, I really like that. And what I'm going to suggest is that to make everybody's life, because I'm just going to come out and say, I can't believe that the parents, the in-laws, the children, I can't believe people want to take and live in conflict. I just can't believe that. Like, that as a psychologist, that doesn't make sense to me. People want peace. We want, we want tranquility. We want an environment in which we can thrive and be successful. What I have a very difficult time. Again, I'm going to talk about expectations, and when the female comes into the family, or the new person comes into the family, they're expected to assimilate into the way we do things. Why is there not an expectation for me to take and go, wait a minute, like, and I'm telling you, so just so that everybody understands, is like I'm going through this process right now. I'm going through this process right now of bringing a daughter-in-law into our home and into our family, and this person, our daughter-in-law. She is not from the United States. She is from a Muslim country. She is a Muslim, and she is coming into our world. How and now she's going to be leaving her country and coming to live here with me. Like, I mean, like, what kind of an asshole would I be if I expected her to just come over here and assimilate into what we're doing? And I understand there's some cultural differences there. My point in this is, why we're talking about another adult. Why would I not want my life to be good and say, hey, let's create something together. Let's do this together. Let's all come together because we're a new and different family now, as opposed to you coming into my family and you just need to like get in line. Like, I don't understand that. I wouldn't want to join that family either.
So you just mentioned cultural difference. I'm going to reword it, man. It's the culture of being assholes. It has nothing to do with the country, race, nation, place. No, the culture of expecting. Now I'm going to talk about your daughter-in-law for a moment, and forgive me for that. Now she's going to be leaving her tribe, her city, her country, her family, her kin. She's going to be all alone in a brand new country, everything. Culture, religion, man. I mean, she's complete. Her life, as she knew it, has been completely shattered, and she's entering a brand new world, and she's trying to find her footing there. And at that time, if Mr. Dennis Tyrrell makes her life miserable, or Miss April makes her life miserable, she's already without footing. You're going to really screw her up, man. And I'm sorry. And then if she retaliates, God, I hope this doesn't cause you trouble, because we're saying this on TV, it's going to stay on record, and she might end up watching that. You know what? If she retaliates, God forbid, I'm sorry, man. You know what? She'd be in the right.
Because listen, I completely agree. I think what we have to look at is, instead of going, well, you're my daughter-in-law, like, this is another human being. And the way I see it is, like, like, my son chose this person. Why would I take and be rude to them? Because now it's not just this person, my daughter-in-law, it's also like, am I pushing my son away? So it's disrespectful to my son as well.
Thank you for raising the point. And whenever I see troubled homes, I ask this question to mother-in-laws: why are you making your own son's life miserable? By making your daughter-in-law's life miserable, you're really just making your son's life miserable.
Right.
Why would you do that? Okay, you hate that bitch, right? Okay, you hate her, all right? Screw her. You love your son? You're destroying his life. Right. You're destroying his peace and sanity. First he puts up with you, then he goes to her, she gives him crap, then he puts up with her. Yeah. And then he has to juggle this torn between two lovers, feeling like a fool, loving there both of you is breaking all the rules, man.
Love it. No, I completely agree, and that's kind of that's kind of been my experience. Is that when my wife's family, like, I am the outcast for sure, and I've known that. I knew that going into it. 30 years later, that hasn't changed, and so really what it is, and the only reason anything is changing now is because April is finally saying, when you don't accept my husband, you are rejecting me. And that's like 30 years into this. I mean, come on, what are we talking about here? Now we're getting to the point of being ridiculous. So I think that I think when we stop looking at people as children and we start looking at them as other adults and just other human beings. I mean, the Quran says something similar to this. I know the Bible talks about this, and why are we specifically told to love our neighbors? Like, let's take that same sentiment and apply that to our family as well. Why would it makes no sense to me. It's almost like we're deliberately taking and screwing up our lives. We're deliberately making our lives much more difficult than they need to be, all to just take and hold on to some tradition that most of the culture doesn't even want to hold on to anymore. It always comes down to power and control. Always. And I don't understand the need for that. We can take culture, we can say religion, we can say any of that. There's plenty of other cultural norms, there's plenty of other religious quotes in scripture and so forth that talk about how we're to treat one another. And seriously, why would I want to? My oldest son is coming up on 26 years old this year. Like, I can assure you, when I was 26, I didn't want to be treated like a child. Like, let's stop taking these adults, regardless of how young they get paired together or even get together, treat them like adults. And that means treat them like your neighbor, treat them with love, treat them with respect. Dude, otherwise, you're just making your own life miserable, especially when you have these multi-generational homes.
If your child is not fit to make his or her own decision, if your child is not fit to carry on their relationships, if your child is not fit to exist on their own, then you know what? Damn sure they're not fit to reproduce. But you would let them reproduce. In fact, you'd force them to reproduce, but you say, oh, you're not old enough to make your own fucking... I'm sorry, we're not supposed to make your own decisions. You're not old enough to choose your partner. Yeah. That's $1 in, man. You're not old enough to live your own life and make your own decisions, but you're old enough to have 3 children and destroy a few more lives. Why the hell is that, man?
It comes down to this ego and expectations. Like, it makes no sense to me. It makes as much sense to sit there and have conflict with people that you say you want in your life. Oh, I want these people in my life, but it's the same as me saying, man, FQ, like, dude, I am so tired of having a headache. And all I do is keep hitting my head. Like, why are you hitting your head? Like, we just don't take and look at these things. It's not, we make this out to be way more complex than it is. And when you take a back to the basics approach, when we treat other human beings as human beings, regardless of their blood relationship to us. Like, we think about it. In many cases, it takes in-laws out of this. We treat cousins, we treat brothers, we treat sisters, we treat our parents worse than we do our neighbor. It makes no sense. Like, practice those same things, those same rules, and apply it to our families, and we won't have this type of interpersonal turmoil and conflict. We just won't.
You know, we need to make a note, and we need to do a show on this, man. Why do people willingly, consciously, knowingly create misery for themselves? They would actually create reasons to fall sick. I mean, they would actually create reasons to fall sick and say, I'm sick. Yeah. They would create a reason for agony and misery and say, I'm miserable. They would force shit on themselves and say, I'm covered in shit. Who told you to put shit in yourself, man?
Right.
It's applicable here, but it's a topic about self as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. It makes it really comes down to is it what I call I call it the dingle dangle in the dirt disorder. It's you constantly
dingle dangle in the dirt.
The dingle dangle in the dirt disorder. Absolutely, because what you're doing is you figure out ways to constantly step on your own wiener. You just do. Like, all of us can do this. We're masters at it. And why I don't understand, again, I'm just going to keep like harping on this because it makes zero sense to me. It makes no sense that here we have people in our own families. Hey, I need you. I want you to take care of me at some point. I want to take care of you, but I'm going to treat you like shit. Like, this is why people get pillows put over their face in the middle of the night when they're elderly. Because you treated people like shit for years.
Another thing I always tell in my culture is that every mother hates her daughter-in-law, but worships the son-in-law. Yet every mother lives with the son and the daughter-in-law.
Yeah.
Hey, if your daughter-in-law is such a bitch, why don't you let sons live with their mother-in-laws and everything would be great? Their mother-in-laws would dote on the son-in-law, they'd worship the son-in-law, the daughter would be, it'd be fantastic, and mothers culturally should live with their daughters. Everything would be fantastic. There'd be no freaking problem, man.
I don't know about that.
Well,
I don't know about that.
Right.
I think fathers
Once
and
that
sons
starts
seem to be
happening,
able to get along
yeah.
a lot better than mothers and daughters at a certain point. I don't know. It's just I have
Yeah,
three
yeah,
sisters and
yeah,
I
yeah.
see this.
Yeah. Once we take the culture that way, they'll make brings back to the same topic.
Right.
They'll make that miserable.
Absolutely.
They just want misery in their life. They consciously, willingly, knowingly want misery in their own lives and around them for their own children, which is unfortunate, man. But you know what? It's a cultural thing.
I'm going to say,
because
I think I don't know how common mothers and arranged marriages are still in your part of the world. I think when that was happening and it was really common, I think part of the problem really was the challenge came in is that the mother figured out, man, we like picked the wrong person. And so there's some of that too. And so like let your kids pick their own spouses, and guess what, mom and dad? Like now you're absolved of all kinds of responsibility for that. I think that also, I think that what happens in many of those situations, and I saw this because we have a version of arranged marriages here. It's usually church-based. But what it is a lot of times it's mothers getting together. It's almost like a hobby. Like, oh, hey, like you and me are best friends, so it'd be the best if our kids got together. Well, and then they find out that the kids hate each other, and then something happens. You're always going to take your own kid's side. Like it just creates this cluster F of a nightmare family situation that doesn't need to be there. It's inviting. It's literally inviting in the dingle dangle in the dirt disorder. You're inviting it in.
And another global problem is you should get married because you're getting too old. Just find the lowest common denominator and do it. Screw love, screw companionship, screw long-lasting relationship. Just find the lowest common denominator and get married because you're getting too old.
Right.
Anyways, here's a comment, man.
Let's go ahead and take some comments.
A wife is for man, not for in-laws. If they respect, that's good. If they don't, then husband should separate. You know what, Sarah? I completely disagree with you, because while a wife is for the man and not for the in-laws, if you use that attitude, then the man is also for the wife and not for the in-laws. You know what? When you're marrying another person, you are marrying into her friends or his friends, family, siblings, relatives, everyone. You have to work towards each other's families and I'm going to use the word background because there's friends involved, family involved, relatives, siblings. You have to be respectful to everybody. It's not because if I'm respectful for her, she'd be respectful towards mine. No. You should just be respectful to everybody just because you are a nice person. If you need excuses to be not respectful, I'm sorry, you're not a good person. Dennis, is there any other way of looking at this comment? I mean, would you like to address differently?
Here's what comes to my mind, and I'm just going to share my screen right now because this is it just does a way better job of saying it than I can. And I had heard this before, but I want everybody to take a look over here to right here where my cursor is.
Wherever you find a wife and mother-in-law slugging it out, you'll find a son who's not speaking up to either his mother. Yeah, what is he supposed to do, man?
Well, one, in my world, when it's that whole thing of like when husband and wife get together, they become one, and now you're supposed to be a team. You're supposed to be a team, and therefore it's not about taking and saying, "Hey, mom, you're a jerk. You're a jerk. I hate you." And I know there was a situation I saw it come up in the comments. I know there's a situation over in your part of the world where I believe a guy beat up his mother. Like that's egregious. That's an outlier type of situation. I mean that's just craziness that would happen. I believe even that was over money. So like I just think that this is about saying, hey mom, hey, like the boy who like in your culture has a little bit more status. I mean, let's just be honest. I think the husband needs to come up and say, like, hey, this is my wife. Like, we're all going to figure out a way to get along. It doesn't have to be confrontational. We bring confrontation into conversations. It is simply about, okay, we all live together. We all want to take and, like, operate as a family. So I'll tell you, I went to a number of family events, Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthday parties and stuff, and I was the one out there standing out there by myself. I wasn't welcomed. There was nobody coming to welcome me in. And what I got told is, well, you're not making yourself available. Well, why don't you invite me in? Like, I've been on the side where I think many of the women in your country have been, where it's like hands, you're kept at an arm's distance and we'll bring you in the more you do as you're told. Well, that did not work with me. I don't know if anybody watching this over the past few months has picked up on this. I don't really take directions very well. And I certainly don't take direct orders very well. I'm not in the military. In my previous job, I was the one giving the direct orders, so you're certainly not going to give them back to me. And not when we're trying to be a family. That is based on mutual respect. Mutual respect and a mutual desire to be together. Otherwise, all you're going to do is continue to have these types of conflicts. Again, I'm going to come out and say it, FQ. Makes zero sense. Let's just deliberately find a way. Let's find a way to make our lives more miserable. So I'm going to say where your expectations, whether they're cultural, religious, or anything else, your past experiences of things that you've seen, your compares and contrasts, all of these things that we bring into these familial relationships, leave them at the door. They're stupid. There is no psychological term for that. Nothing. They're stupid.
Yeah.
It is a deliberate willingness to be ignorant.
Okay, Irfan's come back with a correction. What I meant was I can't complain if I don't treat people. Absolutely, I think if it was wrong.
Yeah.
What was actually meant was that I first, absolutely, Irfan, agree 100%. Man.
Yeah, Irfan,
absolutely.
thank you so
Thanks.
much.
I was surprised that came from you. Thank you for the clarification, man. Khushbu has come back with, I don't agree that the mother-in-law has a responsibility to tolerate all shit, but both parties have to cooperate with each other. If you're adult, it doesn't mean someone is loud. No, Khushbu, I'm sorry, you got it wrong. When this young girl comes into the home, it is the responsibility of the mother and everybody else who's in that house to make that girl feel like the same royalty as she was made to feel in her father's home. If you take away her princess status, she will retaliate and bite you, man. I'm sorry.
And I think Khushbu follows us up with a great
every
comment.
father raises their daughter like princesses. You
Absolutely.
can't suddenly take a princess and turn her into shit. It's not going to work, man.
Khushbu,
Then if you're
this
going
is
to do
a great
that,
follow-up.
then this is going to happen.
I agree, FQ. I think that, from my perspective, I agree with Khushbu on one hand. I mean, I'm kind of in the middle on that comment, but I think this one here really, this last one that she left really clarifies it. She may have been through a lot of hardships in her life. Yes. Khushbu, what I believe you're talking about is as humans, take the relationship part out of it. As humans, we're always better off when we provide grace and empathy towards the other person. And even if we can't empathize, it's a conscious decision to try to see things from their perspective. What I don't understand, and this is I'm just being very honest, I'm trained in this and I've worked in this field for a long time. I don't understand things like the cycle of abuse. I just don't. For me, it was I came from an abusive household, and I understand the tendency, that's what you're taught, so you're just abusive. The bullied become the bullies. I just look at it man, I didn't like being I didn't like being hit, I didn't like that type of treatment, I didn't like to feel that way. I'm going to go out of my way to make sure nobody else feels like that because of me. And I failed at that at times. But still, it's a goal.
I'm gonna say what I'm saying from a different perspective as well. In every situation in life, not just relationships, whoever has the upper hand has the responsibility to set the mood and flow of the interaction.
There it is. Whoever does. Yep.
Whoever has the upper hand. I believe it is a woman's prerogative to shake hands. So if I am ever, it doesn't matter which country, which culture, if I am in front of a woman, I will never make the first move to expect that she's going to shake my hand. It's a woman's prerogative in my world. It is in my world. I'm a public figure.
Yeah.
If I go somewhere and I see somebody approaching me, a lot of times people come and they want selfies. It is up to me. I mean, they really hesitate. Excuse me, sir. Do you? I'm like, you want a selfie, man? Come on.
Yeah.
It is up to me to make them welcome and bring them that comfort.
Yes.
So when this young girl is, I understand the mother-in-law's had a shit time, but you know what? That's her baggage. Deal with it, man. It's not that child's response. And there's an old saying in Urdu which says "saas ri saas dekh ke chal aage teri bajai," which basically means mother-in-law, be careful, because you also have a daughter who's going to a mother-in-law.
Right.
So if your baggage can screw your mother-in-law, then your daughter's mother-in-law's baggage can screw your daughter's life. You really want that?
Let's just focus on treating each other better. I mean, come on. We live in a world right now.
Thank you.
Where these
Yes.
elected officials act like assholes. Where everybody like that you went to primary school with is like that barely passed primary school and university is now all of a sudden an expert on something on Facebook and everything else. And this comes down to a very, very simple approach. I'm going to treat you with kindness, dignity, and respect. There's no way I can go, that's not kind, that's not dignified, and it's not respectful. So if we just focus on those things, we make our life, we enrich our lives. But it's, again, we talked about this yesterday. We overcomplicate our lives because we think we're smarter. And all we have to really do is just get back to the basics and treat each other with kindness, dignity, and respect. Love will come. I don't have to love you.
No, man, it's not just because we think we're smart. It's that most of the time it's because we're assholes. We know what we're doing. We know exactly what we're doing. There is no naivete involved there. Okay? I'm going to take this one, man. You don't know about this shit because this is what fucking culture of a society is. No, I'm sorry, Nawara. He knows exactly what he's talking about. He is a human being who has an intercultural family. And you know what? He just gave us an example. Now I'm sorry. Dennis gets us a lot. It's just that we share broadcast on our profiles and pages and YouTube. Just because I happen to have this hugely large following on my Facebook, majority viewers that we have are from Pakistan or Pakistani origin. That does, you know what? This man really understands the culture. So I'm going to, no, that's an unfair comment. He knows exactly what's going on.
Well, but I just want to say here another one.
Dennis,
and
you
I
had
wanted to
picked
bring
up a
this
comment
up.
from, yeah.
Love your talk. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate
Thank
it.
you very
You're
much.
absolutely right. Thank God someone
Godspeed.
on Facebook. More power to you, Faisal. Thank you so much, Narwa. I really appreciate that. It's a difficult topic.
Okay,
it's
Dennis,
a difficult topic.
Dennis, I want you to talk to this lovely child of mine. You know what? Answer her, man.
So Zoya, I think it depends. So I'm going to say in your culture, I am going to actually agree with you. And I say that, and I think it's kind of a combination between the mother-in-law, the mother that's involved, and the husband of that younger woman or that woman that's coming into the family. Again, wherever you find a wife and mother-in-law slugging it out, you'll find a son who's not speaking up. And the son must speak up. But I'm saying we must speak up in a way that is about like, hey, wait a second, like, stop. I'm not a child anymore. I am not a child anymore. I did not marry a child. Treat us with the same as you would treat your neighbor. Still live insecure. Oh, would you put that one back up? I didn't see that. That was really long.
Yeah, that was too big, so I thought.
That's not so busy here. That woman just needs to serve when she is a daughter-in-law for getting her own. Yeah, Zoya, I can't speak to that. As far as that just needs to serve. Listen, I think as human beings, our responsibility is for all of us to serve each other. I mean, one of the reasons FQ and I are doing this is to serve each other, not just he and I, but so that we're serving, you guys and providing this information. I think that it is everybody's responsibility to serve each other. Not a man to a woman, not a woman to a man. I don't think gender or familial roles have anything to do with that at all. And when we get past gender roles and familial roles and responsibilities, and we focus on respecting one another and serving one another, the whole world will just be a much better place.
Absolutely. Last comment, man. Sorry, not this one. Khushbu had a... Yeah. Oh, sorry, this is the one. Um, come on, come on, come on. He says, I'm single, but I really want to treat my mother-in-law as my own mother. Even if she's angry and may advise me, I will try not to retaliate. You know what? Because she's not my mother. Khushbu, you're right, but you worded it slightly off. You should not retaliate, because if you think she's like your mother, and you should not retaliate to your mother either, by the way. And if you treated your mother-in-law as your mother, you would also ignore her. But there's a key important, very important and key factor. As long as your husband is objective and fair, then it doesn't matter who else around you is being bad. If your own spouse or your partner is being a jerk about it or being unfair, then you know what? Then I say take the gloves off. But as long as your partner and spouse are standing by you, then you know what? Everybody else is just noise. You have to be mindful and smart about it, because mothers, sisters, cousins, family, at the end of the day, they all can be poison to your relationship. But the bottom line is your own relationship. As long as the two of you understand each other, respect each other, value each other, and talk about it and say, listen, you know what, I understand this is a bad situation, but I love you, sweetheart, and I'm with you. It doesn't matter who, it doesn't matter which one. I mean, I've had a situation where, screw my situation, forget that, bad example, because I'd end up talking about somebody who's not around. So the thing is, it doesn't matter who's who. As long as your partner is good to you and with you and supportive and objective, that's all that matters. Everybody else is irrelevant. That's my theory.
Yeah, and I just want to say, to kind of wrap this up for today, is that, you know, in life, regardless of whether it's family, regardless it's whether with our friend circles or anything else, stop playing games. Stop playing games. We're creating these situations in family situations where it's always this emotional this emotional and intellectual chess match where everybody's trying to outmaneuver the other one. If we just stop with the games, stop with all the maneuvering and everything else, and go, listen, you're a human being, I'm a human being, we happen to love the same person. Can't you take and start a relationship based on that we both love this person? I mean, what an amazing relationship that you'll have when you focus on what you truly love together, and that's another human being. Listen, we all make mistakes. We all make mistakes. We all like F this up in some way, shape, or form at some point, and this is where the grace comes in. But when it's a constant, pervasive, situation, like I'll just come out and say it. In my mind, it's just abusive. It's abusive. And we don't have the right to be abusive towards another human being. I don't, why? I mean, my daughter-in-law is coming into the family. I mean, like, let's be honest here. She's 26. What am I going to do? Send her to her room without dinner for the night? This is a 26-year-old person that could come and slit my throat in the middle of the night if they wanted to. Why would I do that? It makes no sense. Like, treat each other with respect. Treat each other with kindness. Love will come. The love part, we focus so much on that, and that's a very complex emotion. That's why the Greeks gave it 3 words. There's 3 different types. It's complex. Focus on dignity, honor, and respect. Love may or may not come, but if it does come, it's going to be that much sweeter because it's based on mutual interest. It's based on, hey, we both love the same person. Let's figure out a way to not make their life suck. Even if
and
you
as
start
Irfan has said it, you know what? Be nice, not because of the other person, because it'll show your class and intelligence. Be nice because you're nice. Anyways, thank you very much. Till tomorrow night.
Thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow. Stay safe, healthy, and blessed. Take care.